It's time for Cats Talk Wednesday. Small town and big city joined forces. Vinny Hardy of Lynch, Kentucky.
Ooh. Oh, hold on. Hit the button and cut the intro off. Trying to be slick and messed it up.
That's all right. We here. We rocking and rolling, baby.
That's on me. See, first of all, welcome to Cats Talk Wednesday. Since I done messed up everybody, appreciate everybody being here. They got it set up day by day. BS3 Network, which we are proud to be a part of. And let me go on and say, because you see it on the background, congratulations to Ben and everybody, because our guy Ivan Dawkins is out there on Radio Row in Phoenix for the Super Bowl. So cool stuff going on with the BS3 Network. Ivan's out there meeting Scott Farrell and all those sports talk legends out there leading up to the game. So cool stuff there, man. How you doing, TB?
Doing fantastic. It's Super Bowl week. It's nitty gritty with college hoops. We saw some big stuff in the NBA and a lot going on. I'm gearing up for a trip back to my old Kentucky home. My baby girl's turning 14. Yeah, which makes me, Anyway, I was like, I'm too young to have a 14-year-old. But anyway.
Absolutely.
So I'm doing good, doing well.
Good stuff. So what I did, look, Ben's got it set up. Looks like you can click on every day, each show. You can click on Monday and like the banner in the background will pop up. Tuesday, Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. Ours is Wednesday, and the little Cats Talk Wednesday logo will pop up in the corner. And then I can hit the background of blue, and it's got the music for our intro. So I was just going to play the intro in our recording and the Ben's intro that y'all hear every Wednesday, and then flip it back to Monday because they have, as you can see in the background, the Super Bowl. We got Glendale, the Cardinal Stadium, got the Super Bowl logo since BS3 is at the Super Bowl. I said, I'll play our recording, and then as it's playing, I was going to flip it back to Monday, but it stopped the music. So that's why you heard that abrupt, back in the old days, it would have been a record player stopping, but it cut the music, cut the intro. So, me trying
record scratch.
Yeah, me trying
Aren't you wondering how I got here? I hit the wrong button and cut off the intro. I'm with you.
Me trying to be slick. But we got 3 big-time guests scheduled to join us. Hopefully that works out. We should have Mark Story from the Lexington Herald Leader here in a couple minutes. He was there at the Arkansas whooping last night at Rupp Arena. He also organizes the voting and the ballots for the Kentucky Sports Figure of the Year, and he sent us ballots for about the past 4 or 5 years now. Little old us been getting the vote in that thing.
I dropped the ball and didn't vote this year.
I
was sitting down and I had to travel for a few. But anyway, when he first asked us to do it, I was like, for real?
Yeah.
And
you text me. And I was like, what?
Am I seeing this right? But we'll talk to him about it because we dabbled a little bit on Round of Shots this past weekend. It's harder than you think.
Yeah.
I don't say that to absolve baseball Hall of Famers for their tomfoolery and shenanigans, but it really is hard. And we'll talk about that with Mark when he comes on. Because you got Abby Steiner and you got Oscar Sheboy. And you throw in Sydney McLaughlin, her ties, who she's got her own Sports Center commercial now, which is hilarious. So it's one of those things. Oscar was the player of the year. Abby won the Bowerman. That's who's one, who's two.
Yeah.
You got to do it because there's no ties.
Right.
And so that's what I was trying to explain to folks. I was trying to explain to Van Hiles because he's a track person. So I get it. He's wrong with Abby. There's no wrong answer.
No.
But it isn't just Oscar was a good basketball player. He was the first unanimous National Player of the Year on the men's basketball side. So that carried some weight with folks, but so many great sporting achievements for the past year for the state of Kentucky. So I know we'll talk about that with Mark as well as the where the Cats go from here.
Yeah. So he just texts back. He's about to jump on, and yeah, I'm with you. And like I said, we'll talk about with him. I don't know if I was maybe subconsciously kind of not dinged Oscar St. Peter's and the way the season ended or something like that. I don't know. And then even he said leading up to the season, I've won all these individual things. I'm trying to get number 9. He was even like, I'm tired of all these accolades. I won everything.
Right.
Trophies for just myself. So I don't know, maybe that kind of played into it as well. But to keep that going, our guest is in the BS3 Network Green Room. And just know
Green Room.
I was not rushing you at all. I was just making sure I emailed you right and stuff. He's a columnist for the Herald Leader, Kentucky Sports, Kentucky.com. Been doing it for a long time. See him at all the games in Kroger Field, chance of the times we got to cover Rupp Arena. He is there. His insights are impeccable. And he even lets us vote on the Kentucky Sports Figure of the Year ballot. We're talking about none other than Mr. Mark Story. Mark, man, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. It's always good to talk to Mr. Story.
It is. Got that prime spot in the press box right beside Tom Leach. You can just, he can just look over there and, throw a spitball at Tom during the call if he wants to in Kroger Field, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I am next to the UK radio booth at football. I'm not quite as close to them in Rupp.
That's prime real estate there.
Yeah. Where they got you in Rupp now?
We're upstairs. I actually like it up there because you can. I guess you give up a little bit of immediacy. You can't really hear what's being said on the court, which that's nice, but you can actually see what's developing better from where we are, and I actually kind of like it up there, to be honest.
Did you see Doug flipping people off? Do you see that developing from your perch?
I did not. I saw it on Twitter after the fact, but no, I did not notice that live.
Okay. I just wonder where you come out on it. Because look, Terry and I were talking. BBN just loves to be polarized about stuff, and this is the latest in that line. So where are you at?
I don't think you can do that as an usher. I think probably suspending him for the rest of the year, and I guess till the end of next year is probably an appropriate punishment. But I don't think you can turn your head on that.
Yeah, we're kind of on the same
line. That's where I'm from. You can't do that, right? Everybody was clutching the pearls when Pitino did it 6 years ago. It was the worst thing, and all this about his character. But when one of our own does it, it's not that big a deal. You can't. The two things aren't incongruous, Vinny. That's another English word for you. Incongruous. So
right off the bat, man. We kind of. I'm with y'all too. We kind of came across like, and Mark, you're gonna like this being a Dodgers fan. We came across as San Francisco Giants fans who, this guy's the worst. This guy's Barry's fine. Barry is innocent. Barry didn't do anything. That's kind of how we came across.
Well, yeah, I'm a Dodgers fan, and the Dodgers fans for years were, Barry Bonds was the worst human on the planet because of his alleged PED use. But when Manny Ramirez was with the Dodgers and he got busted, and then when he came back, there were like 30,000 Dodgers fans who went to San Diego to welcome him back. So, yeah, there's a lot in sports. A lot of times the allegiance tends to trump the issue.
Yeah. We don't always keep the same energy depending on, how it ebbs and flows. You can be mad at the world at Rick Pitino, but hey, this Doug, he's a blue coat. Hey.
So thanks again for joining us, Mr. Story. How would you, just the elephant in the room, how would you diagnose this Kentucky team with where they are in the season, what we saw last night, what we saw preceding it? There just seems to be this general malaise, but what's your kind of diagnosis with some quad one wins still on the table? Where are you kind of thinking this team might end up?
Well, my fear is that they sort of let go of the rope last night in the second half. And, I mean, they do still have enough opportunities to build an NCAA tournament resume, but they don't have much right now. I mean, you look at one quad one win at Tennessee, and let's be honest, that looks like an anomaly more than, an achievement at this point. I'm not super optimistic at this point. And if you follow me picking games, I have consistently picked Kentucky because I came into this year thinking this was going to be a really good team. The phrase I kept using was, I think this team has a lot of answers, but as it turns out, they don't. And defensively, I mean, it's one of the worst Kentucky teams I remember seeing. I mean, they so struggle just to defend kind of the basic high pick and roll. And, Arkansas was burning them last night. Kentucky was rotating off the weak side, and then Arkansas just would have a guy dive to the basket, and that guy would be wide open for dunks. I mean, I'm not super optimistic, to be honest.
Yeah, but your column today that you tweeted out, but no D. The must bust owns February, Cal's halftime talk, no D in UK, Oscar struggles, and like we just talked about, the shaky tournament hopes. You go into a season constructing a roster, and I'm sure you try to account for everything to cover all your bases. There's going to be flaws, don't know what they're going to be and how they're going to present themselves, but you got to imagine that the staff could not have imagined this in preparation for this upcoming season.
Yeah, and Oscar is one of my favorite UK athletes of recent time. I just, last year he just played with such, passion and such joy. It was just he was kind of an uplifting player to watch. And this year, I think maybe we underestimated the impact of the knee procedure that he had before the year, which, cost him, 3-4 weeks of, preseason preparation. I don't think, his game has never been built on, explosive lift, but I don't think he has as much lift this year as he had last year. I don't think he runs quite as fast. I thought he did a lot of his damage last year, beating opposing big men down the court. And while he's, leading the nation in rebounding, it just doesn't seem to me like he rebounds. Last year he was rebounding out of his area. I mean, he went after every ball. And it's hard to criticize a guy who's leading the country in rebounding, but it doesn't feel like to me he does that as much. And, he's one of my favorite UK athletes of recent time. I would really like to see him get it together and play well down the stretch, just kind of to remind people, how they, just sort of to remind people how terrific he was last year, if nothing else.
And Vinny and I have talked about this before. I don't want Oscar to leave and his legacy be no NCAA tournament wins. That to me would be just a crushing kind of asterisk, because I've already seen it, and I've seen you kind of tweeted people about this. We're now kind of retconning what we saw last year. And I saw you respond to someone said, maybe Bob Huggins was right.
Yeah.
And we all saw what happened last year. Like, you can't take that away.
Right.
And I've seen too much of that. Like, we got to let Oscar go. And as you point out, he's still leading the country in rebounding. So it's not a complete lost cause on what's going on. But I'm with you. I'm as optimistic as most people, but time's drawn short right now to get some wins without a deep SEC tournament run.
Yeah, and that's a good point about Oscar and NCAA tournament wins. Now, he played really well in that St. Peter's game. Can't really pin that on him, but yeah, I mean that does sort of get to his legacy as a UK player. And I think at some point, retired jerseys are sort of back at the fore with the Mike Pratt jersey retirement. At some point, having been the consensus national player of the year, Oscar will be somebody being considered for that. And yeah, it would be better for his legacy to, at least have a Sweet 16 run on the old resume.
Mm-hmm. And we see this a lot, especially, being baseball fans, you see a guy get called up and he's hitting 400 the first month and a half, and then, he can't hit a breaking ball. So the next month, that's all he gets. And so he either has to adjust or his average, he'll be back down to 220 and things level out. Everybody's got 30 plus games of Oscar last year. All these coaches were dissecting every little thing, any little weakness we can find since he's coming back. And, the pick and roll and trouble with length and all these things now. And the blueprint, imitation is the best form of flattery. So, everybody else is getting them in pick and rolls. And so now can he adjust to their adjustment? And you mentioned the knee procedure. Cal said it, and we roll our eyes at Cal a lot of times, but he said over the summer, we got to be patient. And he kind of tried to temper expectations and slow down, and everybody, whatever, that's just Cal giving us his spiel. But the more this season plays out, he kind of tried to forewarn us of some of these things that we're seeing.
Yeah, expectations were just so high, and I think a lot of that was fueled by the Bahamas trip. And, other than the last team they played there, I don't know that anybody else they played could have beaten Sayre High School. I mean, the competition there was just so bad, and I don't know that we factored that in enough. The pick and roll issue is kind of confounding. I think a lot of coaches, if their team was having this much trouble defending, just basic high pick and roll, would go to zone, play more zone. This coach, just philosophically does not believe in that. I mean, they dabbled a little bit, and they showed Arkansas a 2-3 early last night, but it wasn't something they stuck with. And he just, Calipari just doesn't believe in playing zone. But that to me would be the most obvious answer in this particular case when you've had so much trouble playing man to man against just the basic high pick and roll.
And so, to kind of follow all this up, kind of where are you on the Cal? I hate this word because we live in this ESPN, his legacy. Like, he burned hot, but now it's kind of cooled off a little bit. Kind of where are you on, let's say they don't make the tournament this year and next year's got even more kind of weight to it. Kind of where are you on how does Cal get what no other coach has had and that happy kind of ride off into the sunset here in Lexington?
That's a good question. I mean, obviously the second part of the tenure has not been anywhere close to the level of the first part. And, if this season doesn't, end on a happier note, the pressure next year, assuming everything stays as is, they're going to be under a lot of pressure. And, obviously the incoming freshman class is very lavishly touted. And, you go back to, I think a lot of people, felt like Kentucky needed to get more experienced. You look at the teams that have been winning national championships. They've been much older than, many of Kentucky's teams. But let's be honest, the last 2 years, Kentucky's been really experienced, had a lot of older players. And, you lost to a 15 seed and now you're on the bubble. So, maybe they're better off going back to the one and done model. But the one thing that worries me about this is, I'm not a recruiting guru, but most of the recruiting guys say this incoming freshman class is not a strong class. So even though Kentucky has, 4 of the top 10 and 5 of arguably the top 30 or 35, you're asking, these guys to go up against older teams, and not all freshman classes are created equal. So, that worries me a little bit.
Mm-hmm. A little thing that kind of predated Terry and I just got to ask you, the 40th anniversary of the Dirk Minifield dunk at Rupp Arena. Were you in the house? Were you listening to K-Wood? Were you watching on TV? What?
Yeah, I guess I was in college, but I wasn't at that game. I remember it. And I think I actually was listening on the radio now that I think about it, because I actually think I remember the call. But I don't know that I did. Obviously, you have to see that dunk to fully appreciate it.
Yeah.
It arguably to this day, maybe the Willie Cauley-Stein dunk at Florida rivals it. But that Dirk dunk is arguably still the most spectacular Kentucky dunk, and that was a long time ago.
Yeah, and Dick Vitale was kind of understated when you play it. I mean, it wasn't, he got excited, but it wasn't maybe the '90s Dickie V that you and I grew up with. TV
before he became a caricature of what he did. To transition to something else that you do, Mr. Story, here, the Kentucky Sports Person of the Year. That I think is great, and like I was telling Vinny before you came on, it makes you appreciate what the Hall of Fame voters have to do every year, or the MVP voters have to do every year, because it's not easy. You always get like 8 people that legitimately can be number one, but there's no ties. I'm sorry to cut you off there.
No. The last 2 years we've sent out 3 8x11 pages with super small type of possible nominees, and it's hard to cut to that. I mean, if I showed you the list of people that we cut from our big list, it's fairly impressive, and there's some pretty meaningful accomplishments that don't even make what we send out. And yeah, it's kind of an amazing, I don't know, tribute is probably not the right word, but kind of an amazing example of the level of sports achievement that our relatively small state produces each year. And it's hard to cut.
Making the big list is an accomplishment in itself.
Yeah, it is. And surviving the big list to make it onto the list that goes out is competition for that is high.
Yeah.
It really isn't an abundance of riches when you look at our state not being as populous as some others. But when you start looking not just kind of year in, year out, but historically, Kentucky's got a pretty solid roster of athletes when you start looking at, the Louisville Lip, Vinny, Muhammad Ali to you folks. We call him Louisville. Had to slide that in.
Yeah, I think a big part of that, I think it's gotten better. I think a big part of it is UK and U of L have both built, high-level, comprehensive athletic departments. I ran this for the first time back in the '90s, and it was competitive then, but I don't think the depth of athletic achievement then is where it is now. And I think a big part of that is Kentucky and Louisville are really, really good at a whole lot of different things. And the depth of achievement in our state at the college level. And let's be honest, college athletics pretty much drives the sports conversation in our state most of the time. But the depth of achievement at the college level now is pretty amazing.
Yeah, because when we were in school, Vinny, we've talked about, especially at UK, it was kind of men's basketball, and even the football team was, begging crumbs to some extent. But now you've got NFL draft picks, Olympians. I mean, you name it. And I guess we can give Louisville a little bit of credit too. They've done pretty good for themselves outside of all the bad stuff, Heisman trophies and things like that. So to me, it's kind of been like the rising tide has lifted all boats. Once the 2 flagship universities decided they're all in on softball and baseball and track and everything like that, then now, Western and Eastern have stepped up their games. And even, some of the smaller schools, Northern Kentucky is making noise on different levels. So as a Kentuckian, you have to be proud just so long as the Wildcats are at the top.
In this year's voting, the Wildcats were at the top. It was the first time that you had 3 UK athletes who were active in the voting year who finished 1, 2, 3. And that was Oscar Sheboy finished first. The track star Abby Steiner finished second, and a relatively close second. And Ryan Howard, the women's basketball star, finished third. And this award goes back to 1981, and it's the first time 3 UK athletes finished 1, 2, 3.
And it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue with everything. If anything, I think Ryan Howard, and Vinny and I have talked about this before, she may be the most overlooked great athlete to come through Kentucky in a long, long time. Because Mark, we talked to Maggie Hendricks that covers the WNBA for Bally Sports, and they're raving about Ryan, and it's like I feel bad because maybe I didn't watch her enough when she was in blue and white.
Yeah, I would have bet the house that when Ryan came here that she was going to win the Sports Figure of the Year, and she finished second once and third once and was in the top 10 a third time. I think a little more, the one thing she didn't have in her career was a really deep NCAA tournament run. I think had they produced that might have propelled her, maybe to the top of the sports figure voting. They had the incredible run at the end of last year where they won their last 10 games and then won 4 games in the SEC tournament and beat beat Kim Mulkey, beat the Lady Vols, and then beat Dawn Staley in the eventual national champions. I mean, that was pretty amazing. But then they weren't able to back that up in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that that just didn't happen while Ryan was here, and I think that would have, at least in the context of the sports figure voting, would have really helped her.
And I go into it. I'm like you, Terry. I'm glad to see Kentucky on top, but I go into it and I just try to remove it all. I just try to look at the whole state: Kentucky, Louisville, Eastern, Western, Northern, Murray, Moorhead, whoever, high school kids. I just try to wipe the slate clean as I'm going through it. And I still ended up with Abby, Sydney, and Oscar this year in my top 3. But even if you look at, say, like Gabriella Leon from Louisville, who had an amazing track year, but then you look at what Abby and Sydney are doing, and, she still is down a few notches. I put her in my top 10, but I just go through and kind of read, and some paragraphs are bigger than others, and some are more impressive than others. And hers jumped out, but, and I'm trying to wipe the slate clean, but she didn't win the Bowerman. She didn't do what Sydney did.
Right.
That's not a knock on her. It's just a testament to what Sydney and Abby did.
Yeah, Sydney McLaughlin Lavroni, I believe, is how she pronounced, or how her married name is pronounced. The thing that hurts her in this is, a one and done UK athlete, here 8 months, a pro athlete that didn't grow up in Kentucky has never won the Sports Figure of the Year award. Lamar Jackson came close, in 2019. Tayshaun Prince came close in 2004, I believe. But it's just, usually the winner of this will be somebody competing or working inside Kentucky or somebody who grew up in Kentucky. And that's sort of what Sydney's up against. Abby, I do vote, and I had Abby number 1 on my ballot. As brilliant a year as Oscar Tshiebwe had, winning all those National Player of the Year awards, I felt like Abby sort of, matched that by winning the Bowerman, which, is sort of the track and field version of the Heisman Trophy. And then you look, she went on and competed, won the national championship, competing in the U.S., the U.S. championship, and then, went to the world championships. And while she finished 5th in the 200 meters, she won 2 gold medals on relay teams. And you also look, she was the SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year in both women's indoor and outdoor track and field. And so, that was, when I looked at her credentials in comparison, even with athletes so accomplished as Ryan and Oscar, I thought Abby had the best year.
I did too. I remember, Terry, we talked about it. I think with Ryan Black, who's with the Hurl Leader now. And I think Abby's going to win it. And when I was going through reading, I was like, "There's your winner." I just kind of said it to myself. Oh, I already have my number 1. Now let me adjust.
You got to work backwards.
Here's
the one.
Gonna go. But I was kind of surprised when you tweeted out that Oscar did win, and like I was telling Terry, I don't know, maybe I might have subconsciously knocked Oscar for St. Peter's, even though he won everything under the sun individually. And then even going into this season, he even was kind of like, it's great. I want all this stuff. I want to win number 9. So he's even kind of over all the individual stuff himself. And maybe that kind of played a role in me not voting for him either. But I did have Abby number 1. But
I did too. She ran really strong among Lexington media. In fact, she was leading that vote until the very last day. The final two ballots put Oscar ahead of her among just Lexington media. And Abby did well in Eastern Kentucky. She ran a pretty close second, but Oscar sort of smoked her among the Louisville media and in Western Kentucky. And, obviously I'm just speculating. My theory on that is I don't think the Olympic athletes are as well known across all parts of the state as the football and men's basketball players tend to be. And, that's an obstacle that, a voting obstacle they sort of run up against at times.
So they still do the banquet or the dinner for it too for the winner, or
no, we're not. The Bluegrass Sports Commission had an annual dinner, and we were presenting the Sportsphere of the Year award at that for several years. They've not had that dinner the last couple of years, so we're sort of on our own. I'm not sure what we're going to do in terms of presenting this year's winner, the award to this year's winner.
Well, we're always honored to get that email from you every year, and still we talked about still just kind of like he really includes us. He really lets us vote. It's still.
My wife was shocked when I told her. She's like, "You vote?" I'm like, "Come on now."
I'm thrilled. I think it's a better award the higher level of media participation you get. So I want everybody. I want everybody that is eligible, has any capacity to the Kentucky sports media. I want them to vote. So I'm grateful to you guys for participating.
And even though we are not in Kentucky, I speaking for Vinny here, we try to do a pretty good job of keeping up with my home state and everything. So I enjoy it.
Yeah, same here. Just for let you go, Kentucky's road is precarious, and the margin of error was thin before last night. Still got a trip to Fayetteville, and we saw what happened in Lexington. How do you we saw South Carolina, and they turned the corner and kind of righted the ship. We've all talked about how they don't have much time left. Do we get things righted for one last run, or has the rope been let go of for good?
Well, that worries me a little bit because I thought the first half was the best half of basketball that I'd watched live this year. I thought it was a really fun, entertaining half. I thought both teams were really getting after each other. I just thought it was a really good half of basketball. So I was, probably like John Calipari, I was pretty stunned at the way Kentucky just seemed to come out flat at the start of that second half. You had, Arkansas, one of the Mitchell twins hits a 15-foot jumper. Then, they have back-to-back steals for dunks, and all of a sudden Kentucky's down 7 and basically played uphill the whole rest of the game. Going forward, obviously they've got to win this Georgia game. They're at a point they can't take any bad losses. And then Mississippi State and Starkville, that's a tough out. That's a game they really need to win. And that would be a quad 1 win because it's a road game if you could get it. Then Tennessee will be out for revenge. If they could beat them again, that would be a humongous achievement and would sort of back up the first win over Tennessee. Then you've still got, you've got opportunities, a road game at Florida. That's a quad 1 game on the road or would be a quad 1 win. Auburn is sort of you need them in the top 30 in Rupp for that to be a quad 1 win, but that would be either a quad 1 opportunity or a high level quad 2. Vanderbilt at home is, a game that, you've got to win. I mean, there's just no choice on that. And then you've got, another shot at Arkansas. So there's still opportunities there, but, it's just, off what we saw last night in the second half and just the reality that they're 1-7 in quad 1 games, it's hard to generate a lot of confidence, I guess, would be the way to put that.
Because they're not stopping anybody. That's the thing. The offense, we focused on that and play this lineup, and I'm just ready for the next season because I'm tired of debating what the lineup is. My little rant about the numbers, Vinny, I'll keep it short. I think analytics serves a purpose, but at some point you got to just play the games. At some point, your coach, your manager just has to have a gut feeling. And I don't want the numbers to take that away. Like baseball, from when we grew up watching it, there's nobody stealing the base anymore. It's not played the same kind of way like it used to be. Every team is playing the same. I'm not going to go on my 20-minute rant, Mr. Stewart, keep it short. But yeah, they got to win. I mean, that's the bottom. Like, I don't care what they have to do, who they have to play. They just got to win these games.
For all the focus there's been on Kentucky's offensive approach, I thought last year what did them in was kind of a defensive collapse late in the season that carried over into the tournament. And I don't think they've fixed any of those problems. And in terms of defending the high pick and roll, it's been worse this year. To me, if you look at the really successful part of the Calipari era and compare the offensive numbers to what they've been the last couple of years, there's not that much difference. The slippage has been on the defensive end.
And we've talked about it before. That has been Cal's hallmark, to get these highly recruited freshmen playing tough defense from day one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even guys like Tyler Hero that weren't necessarily great individual defenders, turning them into very serviceable team defenders for your team defense. And yeah, you're right on the money. That's what has been just lacking.
Just lack of shot blocking, and then it's contagious. It's kind of eating away at the perimeter, and then it's just a whole thing where nothing is really that good or solid like it should be. Last thing, you've been a long time member of the media. Lots kind of been made of maybe Cal not talking as much in the press conference, the shorter press conferences, not as much sound bites, and then Chin comes in, or you bring an assistant in. Now, we mentioned Patino earlier. I remember we roasted him one time. They lost at Providence, and he didn't even show up and do a presser. Where are you at as someone who's in the media, covers every game, goes to all the pressers? Are you like, man, this is part of your contract, you kind of need to be out here talking and facing the music and taking your medicine, or are you kind of where you come out?
Well, there's two separate issues. The news conferences, are that's still, even in our modern communication world, that's still primarily how you disseminate information to your fans. But there are also then the paid appearances, which are on the UK network, the JMI stuff. So there's two issues there. I don't mind that they have different people do the pregame. I think it's good to hear different voices. I do think the head coach should do it before the big games. I think he should have been there before Tennessee. They probably should have been there before, the Arkansas game. I think the head coach ought to do those before the big games. The stuff about, coming out and only doing one segment on the post-game coaches show, and, even on his call-in show, and I think he stayed the full hour this week, but he's been leaving kind of early on that too. And if I was JMI and that paying most of his salary, I wouldn't be real happy about that.
Yeah. So it's, and again, we get mad or poke fun at somebody else, and then when the ball's in our court, we just going back to what we talked about earlier. But Mark, man, we thank you so much for taking time out of your Wednesday evening, because you've got games these next 3 Wednesday evenings, which is a little bit odd, even that 4:00 Auburn game, which is a weird start time. But appreciate you taking time to hop on here with us. Thank you as always for letting us vote for the Kentucky Sports Figure of the Year, and appreciate all that you do, all your content and football, basketball, everything you do for the Herald Leader. We definitely appreciate you, sir.
Guys, I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate your support for the Kentucky Sports Figure of the Year award. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it, sir.
Mark Story from the Herald Leader coming through, dropping knowledge, all kind of topics, man. We got the sports figure, Arkansas. We got the thoughts on Cal's, kind of bailing out on stuff,
Yeah, Cal's got to be better. That's what leadership is all about.
Yep.
It's easy when things are going good, but sometimes you gotta sit up there and take your medicine.
Yeah. And maybe I'm petty. I've YouTube, when other coaches lose, I'll pop up their press. Let me see what Nate Oates is saying after this. Let me see what Bruce Pearl said after this law. Let me, so you got to, you in that chair, you gotta.
Yeah, you're in the big chair.
Mhm.
You're the leader of men, as we have labeled coaches, and leader of young women. You gotta take it, and it's not easy.
Mm-mm.
He's got to be as frustrated as anybody, but by the same token, you gotta take your medicine.
Explain why is this happening? Tell the fans that want to know what's going on, or if you got our coach say this or we didn't.
Why is Damian Collins didn't he play in the second half?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm rooting for that young man so hard. Look, that charge he got, he was trying to send that Arkansas kid to the next world. And I'm here for it. I thought he hit that jumper at the halftime buzzer. I'm thinking that is momentum. He is active. It's obvious he brings an element to the game that Oscar doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if you can play them together, but
above the rim element, the shot block,
right? And that's what we've been missing for the last few. Just throw it up.
Mm-hmm.
That has been the offense since Cousins. That year. Even I would say a little bit with Terrence Jones and Jorts in 2011.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
2012. I'm not. Some of the offense in 2013.
Yeah.
Was Nerlens go get it, right? Mm-hmm. And so we've missed that, and I think that's an element that would alleviate some of the offensive problems that we did have, because we've been efficient here lately, but it's a real struggle to get points. Mm-hmm. And that's what's missing. Is last year, like Mark was talking about, just Oscar running hard was good for 6 to 8 points a game.
It really was. And he
was just beating everybody down.
Fly. I mean, burning it up, man.
I mean, he would rebound, kick it, and then still beat the opposing big man down.
Yeah, he sure would.
And so I think if we had to look at what's really different in Oscar's game between last year and this year, it's that. Mm-hmm. It's not beating his man down the court, because either he's going to get an easy shot or he's going to be in good position, right? He's going to beat the man to the spot, and so it's an easy, pass, So now he's really having to work for his offense.
Mm-hmm.
That is the difference.
And he's still raw offensively. As far as an array of moves or polished moves. If
that Dwight Howard school of
and sometimes he doesn't play the angles. He'll try to bank it in. He'll throw it up over the glass, and it'll bank it'll be complete, miss it bad. And
Russell Westbrook, we call that.
If my dad was here to watch Oscar, that was his thing. Got to work with these big men about the glass. He really liked how Kenny Payne used to do that. Got to get these big men working. He would be losing his mind at some of these terrible 1-footers that have been missed, just because of bad angles.
And for me, look, I'm gonna keep picking Kentucky to win because they do have the talent to win. I think last night not having Wheeler out there hurt, because if nothing else, Wallace, as great as he played, cannot play 40 minutes.
Right.
We saw this last year where, with injuries, but, Kellen Grady didn't need to play. He had 8 straight games of like 38 plus minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a recipe for anything.
Yeah. Just wearing somebody out.
So if nothing else, take the ball, because as soon as Wallace went out, he had to come back in, because the backcourt of CJ and Toppin playing hot potato at the 20 feet from the basket, or 40 feet from the basket, not going to work. It's just not going to work. And, I still think we have the pieces. And as we talked with Mark about, there's still opportunities, but
they're getting they're dwindling.
Yeah, and the only comforting thing is Duke and Carolina are also terrible.
Yeah.
That's the comforting thing. But I hope, as we've talked before, I hope for a lot of reasons that we make the tournament, get a win or two, at least for Oscar's sake.
Yeah, that would,
because people going back and pretending he was not good last year. Come on.
Right. Yeah.
Like you can say this year, and this year is not a total waste because he is leading the country in rebounds. So it's okay to say he's limited, but we knew that last year.
Right.
We don't know how hurt he is with the knee situation. I just wish we were fair with Oscar because it's like he took a villain turn. He went from the hero to the villain. And I see people being really way negative about it. He's trying to get the NIL. He's trying to get the NIL to get his mom and his family out of the huts back home. Like, okay, like I'm going to cut that dude some slack. I am. Right. But you can't just say, well, Huggins was right. No, Huggins was not right. And Mark was like, I saw that tweet he had this morning. I said, no,
Mark
man.
Berger. It was Mark Berger. And
like Huggins was right. Are you okay? And and the thing is, we can say Oscar's limited. He's got to do X, Y, and Z. He has still had moments this year. He still had that stat line that we hadn't seen in 50 years. It's okay to say these things. And people, you and I talk about it all the time. Nuance is lost. We live in a very polarizing world when it comes to sports. You got to have a hot take. Either you're the greatest ever or you're trash. And most of us fall on that spectrum.
Yeah.
We see that so much. Like your man Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. You can say Tom Brady is your GOAT, but you can't say Shannon Sharp wasn't any good.
Right. Yeah.
You make the Hall of Fame, you are good at your job.
Shannon got 3 rings, but he wasn't any
and
good.
He's in the Hall of Fame.
And he broke some of Ozzie Newsom's record. I mean, he was, Tony Gonzalez and Gronk and all those guys just had to pass him to become who they are. And Kelsey and all these guys, they had to pass Sharp because when he was retiring on the way out, he was like the preeminent tight end in the game.
Right. So there's the continuum, and you can say, is this that guy the great? You don't have to do that.
He was fighting with your people from Memphis, though. I don't know what that was. We didn't talk about all that with him and T. Morant and whatever that was.
I'm gonna tell you something though.
Your Memphis people is kind
no.
Your cousins them down
Sharp, he fought with Memphis in Los Angeles. Notice he was not at the FedEx Forum because his Mama B will tell you way back when Memphis was playing at the Mid-South Coliseum, it was, if we don't beat you on the court, we will beat you off of it. So that is my word of advice. And Shannon Sharp looks like he's about that business, right? You know his history and how he grew up. He about it. I'm gonna tell you something. 901 is different. I can't speak to a lot of places. But I'm gonna tell you, 901 is different. Did you hear last week Dominic Foxworth and Bomani Jones talking about that? Florida has some dudes, Louisiana's got some dudes that they bout that, right? Because it was that your list of people you like. I'm not gonna fight you. Yeah. And then as they're talking, Bomani was also like, Memphis too. I'm
Mhm.
telling you, when you got people that fight just to have something to do,
Mhm.
like not to achieve a goal, I'm not messing with those people.
Yeah.
If you've got people, and I think people need to understand some of these dudes that grow up, particularly in the South, I'm gonna speak to it. There's poor, and then there's poor in the South.
Po.
There's po,
Po.
right? There's whatever town you live in, there's a poor section. There's poor people,
Mm-hmm.
but in the South, it's different because they've been like that for generations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but if you have to fight your sibling every single day to see who gets the extra pork chop, that's different.
Mm-hmm.
If you and your friends are sitting around because there's no store to go to, you ain't got no TV, and you decide to start fist fighting,
Mm-hmm.
that's different.
They just Kimbo slicing one another just to pass
Just
the time.
look, I've heard stories of how my father grew up. And buddy, he used to fight everybody. It's just different. You have to understand where people come from.
Yo.
Let me tell you a little quick story about my dad. He never told me this. My uncle told me this.
Mm-hmm.
We were at a family reunion, and my uncle said something about like the Jefferson family. And everybody, my dad's siblings, all kind of, I said, what is that about? My uncle said, oh, your dad used to go on Sundays and he used to go get chicken from the Jefferson family. I said, well, why would that be a thing? My dad used to fight all the time. He fought all the brothers and cousins in his family, fought the old man of the family. And to prove his point, my dad went every Sunday and got a piece of chicken off these people's table. What? Like, what are you talking about? My dad used to fight all the time.
And then he just went and took the Jefferson chicken.
Just took the chicken and like, yeah. Every time I hear a story about like, what? So my dad used to fight because he had to. He had to fight.
What did Jefferson do about it? They just let him take
nothing because he whooped everybody. What are they gonna do? He the man of that house. That's my dad. He's like, I'm the man. I done whooped everybody. It's mine. My dad learned to fight because my grandfather worked at a factory downtown Louisville, and my grandparents lived 7 blocks from the factory. My grandfather would get paid on Friday. My dad would go get the cash, and every cent had to be back to my grandmother. So my dad learned how to fight, and he fought everybody.
Mm.
I'm still getting stories of my dad fighting people.
It's in Smoketown, right?
Oh, it's in Smoketown. Oh, yeah. In the old heads, like, hey, Pooh Brown of Smoketown, he was about it. And then my brothers, they came up. And so, look, I don't fight. I've had a couple. I don't fight. I know, hey, it's getting to that point. I'm going to back up because I can't fight, right? Like, if you ain't got the hands, don't do it. That's me. I don't fight. And so, for a while, I guess my brothers and my dad would be like, that I was soft. And my mom was like, look where you all grew up. Look where he grew up. By the time I'm born, my dad's a sergeant. By the time my memory is here, he's a lieutenant. I mean, he was an assistant chief when I was 6 years old, in first grade. So I ain't about that struggle life. Like that ain't what I do. So where am I going to learn how to fight? If I'm fighting, that's something wrong with me. If I'm fighting, in the suburbs, but my dad had to fight. Right. And so look, I know I'm painting with a broad brush, but when you with some dudes, you got your dude, you can tell the people that are about it. There's something about them. If you jaw them back and forth and they do something, you're like, okay, all right, I see where this is going. You are about it. I am not. So I'm going to end this right now. Is it being a punk? No, it's like saying, this ain't my bag. This is not what I'm going to do. I am not going to fight.
Yeah.
What I look like trying to fight?
Yeah, taking.
I'm too pretty. I told my dad I'm too pretty to fight. Pretty people don't fight.
Papa B, boy.
Oh man,
Running things, boy.
He fought people in the Navy. Oh man, like this is how bad. And I'm gonna leave this here. My grandmother used to tell my siblings, if somebody picked on them, don't tell your brother. Don't tell my dad. Don't tell your brother. Because if somebody would pick on one of my aunts and uncles, he was coming through. He was coming through. That's how the Jeffersons found out the hard way. When Pooh Bear come through, I'm fighting everybody. So yeah. I asked my dad, I said, did you ever lose a fight? He said, I avenged every loss I had. I avenged it. All right, man.
There you go.
Anyway,
go.
But yeah, I just want to point that out, saying you see where Shannon Sharp did not fight.
That's true.
And you see who he did not yell at on the Grizzlies. Let me tell you something. Steven Adams. Now, I ain't saying that Shannon Sharp is a punk. I'm just saying you do the math on that. You may beat Steven Adams, but boy, that seems like it's going to be costly to you.
Yeah,
because you see that video where he just picked up the one dude. Look, I don't even know how you come back when another man pick you up like a little kid and carry you off to the sideline. That's what Trent Williams did against the Eagles.
Oh,
he got mad and just picked up that dude and threw him.
Sure did.
Like, yeah, man. You got to go find a new line of work.
Yeah, Steve from New Zealand. You don't know what it's like over there. I mean, and that's right beside Australia, and you know they tough over there. I mean, all that stuff in Australia that will kill you, and they over there just living with.
Ask about those Morris twins. Mess around with Jokic. Do a cheap shot at Jokic. Jokic laughed it off. Jokic got his shot in. Gave that Morris twin whiplash. I ain't never seen that on NBA Report. That's what you get from getting in a car accident. Gave that man whiplash because he hit him with a forearm shiver. Are you kidding me? Look, we used to them soft Europeans. Now we getting Europeans from places that have been fighting in wars and bout it.
Yeah, like where Vlade came from, where Bosnia and Ukraine.
They don't even exist. Where Vlade, like I don't.
Yeah,
I shouldn't laugh. That's not fun. But I don't. Yugoslavia, I don't think exists anymore. I don't know. We're talking about geopolitics, but my point is, there are some dudes that are about it. And there's just some people I wouldn't fight.
Yep. Sure.
Well, let me scratch that. I ain't fighting no more. If you 45 years old and still fighting, and you're not a former champ, something wrong with you. If you ain't trying to do your fourth or fifth comeback, why are you fighting at 45?
Yeah.
If I'm fighting, Vinny, at this stage, a lot of things have had to go wrong in my life. If I text you and I'm like, man, I was in a fight, then you should just know something like something happened, right?
You down bad, boy.
Right. Like TV was fighting who? Fighting with you on your PlayStation? What are you fighting? You didn't fight nobody.
Oh. Shoot, waiting see if Coach Jones hops on here. I don't know. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But send the link. But first of all, congratulations to, even if he don't hop on, the Black Bears beat Harlan last night, and it was Coach Cal who was on here last week. They played each other twice. Played at Harlan last Thursday, and Harlan County won. Played last night at Harlan County. I went up there and caught it, and Harlan County beat them again. Started off on fire. I mean, on fire. They ended up winning 81-73, but it was like 26-8 after the first quarter because everything they was throwing up was going in. Trent Noah had initially decided to transfer to North Laurel, play Reed Shepherd and them. decided he was going to stay because I turned on TV last summer and it was on ESPN. It was Reed Shepherd and Trent Noah. And I'm like, oh, he done transferred. He decided to come back, and he had 30 and 12 last night. And so it was a good game. The whole county was out. It was fun to get back. Popped up home to see mom and get a plate like you do when you go to Louisville. You know, mom made.
I've already put in some orders when I go back.
Got me some
next
dinner.
weekend.
Got me some dinner last night. Me and the boys popped up there and then went down for the game and then popped back. So it was a little whirlwind, but it was fun. And Coach Cal was on last week. He told us, he said, you will see me sit for 80% of the game. And I was watching him. He sat for most of the game. Now, they wasn't shooting well, it wasn't going well, but all this jumping up and fussing and yelling and screaming, and he told us he didn't do that. And I was checking him out. I was peeping him out. He was calm and cool, and they was getting beat. Now, it wasn't going well, but he still didn't lose his mind. He did exactly what he told us. He ain't overcoaching no more. We did our preparation. It's on them to execute, and he was chill. He was chill the whole game. One of his assistants every now and then would get up and yell out some, encouragement, some instruction. Coach Cal was on that chair like he told us last week.
That's that Phil Jackson. Like, hey, you got yourself down by 10. You figure it out.
Yeah, that's how he did, man. He wasn't ranting and raving, and we know it's not going to change, but maybe Cal will be served to do that. He was off the chain last night. Yeah. We know he's not going to change. We know.
No, you are who you are.
Yeah. So,
but you missed LeBron making history, man.
Yeah, I gotta talk about that, man. I gotta.
Here's the thing too. I saw this last night after it happened because I watched after our game, after the Kentucky game. I was like, well, I'm gonna find a little joy in this night.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, all these Bron fans, they look. My youngest is more of a LeBron fan than I am. I'm a rock with him, but you know who my hierarchy of dudes are.
Mm-hmm.
But a dude scoring more points than anyone else in league history, it's a big deal. This ain't the most 3-point shots. Love you, Steph. This ain't the most 40-point games. This ain't none of that. This is no one scored more points in NBA history than this person.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. Even if you don't like the dude,
right?
That's a big deal. And yes, there's some kids out here that still want to use that for a GOAT debate. You and I have been out of that forever and ever. You feel how you feel at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever is your GOAT is your GOAT. But to see LeBron do it in front of his family, Kareem was there, and selfishly showing the highlight of Kareem breaking the record, and then LeBron breaking the record. That's a lot of purple and gold, man.
Yeah.
So my point is, look, even if we're not going to be competitive, the Lakers are still must see. That's been the thing. Even if we are not going to win a championship, there's always a reason to see what's going on. I did watch last night, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander may end up being the best dude that was like a throw-in of a recruiting class ever. Remember, he didn't start till like 15 games into his freshman year at Kentucky.
Yeah.
I'm telling people, I work with a guy, he's a Lakers fan. I'm like, look, man, SGA, he was that dude at Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And he's become even more of that dude. And you see how his numbers are comparing to others. I'm glad he's an all-star. Talk about that.
Yeah.
Bam being an all-star.
Mm-hmm.
Randall being an all-star.
De'Aaron Fox should have been. Ain't no way he should. I don't know how.
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox should have. Absolutely. But look, you tip your hat to LeBron.
Yeah.
So I said this on Twitter. I'm going to say it here to clear it up. I asked, because people have asked the question, is there another person another sports person, can you remember, who is being tabbed that young as being the next big thing and actually became the next big thing? And for me, it's LeBron. Like, well, I saw a lot of people saying Tiger Woods, and I'm like, was Tiger Woods a thing? For me, it was Tiger Woods when he won the Masters in 97 by 20 strokes or whatever. Because that was the last, only time my dad's ever called me on. It was that Sunday. I had gone home for something and come back, and my dad called me that Sunday afternoon, asked me if I'm watching golf. First, last, only time. That to me is when he jumped up on the string.
No,
a lot of people say he was Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year in 96. And I like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop you right there.
But they had him on.
19-year-old TB didn't care anything about golf. I didn't care who it was.
Yeah. They had him on was it Mike Douglas show when he was like 2
right,
years old.
Right, doing some stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll give Tiger that, but I'm like, most people didn't pay attention to golf until Tiger became Tiger.
Or you're right, yeah.
And so I understand what they're saying is, Sports Illustrated had him Sportsman of the Year and all this kind of stuff, but I would say it's different when your high school games are on ESPN.
Yeah, and we getting steady doses of St. Vincent St. Mary's games.
Right. They were playing in these made-for-TV games and everything. But what you have to admit about LeBron is he the same person he was in Miami? No. Whom among us is the same person we were 10 years ago physically? I'm not.
But his drop-off has been a lot less dramatic than most.
And, toward the end, Kareem was not Kareem, right?
Yeah.
And for right or for wrong, LeBron is still the best player on the Lakers.
Yeah.
And it's not a ceremonial, just keep feeding him till he's still getting buckets. Not the same way he was, right? So,
but he's not washed yet either.
No, and
like
for
most people are at this point.
Right. Year 20. How many people get to year 20? And then most year 20, it's just
you just hanging on.
Right.
8 points, 6 rebounds.
Right. So and if you're still, I know LeBron is the All-Star game because he's still the name, but even still, if you could just have a draft pool of all NBA players, how long until LeBron gets drafted?
Yeah.
Okay, you take Giannis, right? You take Giannis. Jokovic, probably ahead. Probably Luka, if you want to do that, But after that, Tatum or LeBron. Steph or LeBron.
You're taking him over all the guards.
I mean, he can still, in the right situation, he can still bully. My point is, LeBron is something we have never seen. And it might be another 40 years before we see anybody get close to the record. So, yes, it means something. I'm not the biggest LeBron fan, but yes, it means something.
Right. And I'm not either. And I caught myself, what was it? Kentucky Girl Sean or something on Twitter. Big Celtics fan. But here I am. Never been a LeBron guy. Hate the Lakers. But she tweeted out, what are we doing? We stopping the game and they losing. And I'm like, come on. And I sent her the link because when Steph broke Ray Allen's record,
we do this.
The game. I said, this is what,
For the big ones, we do this. Look, the Orioles were out of contention in a meaningless game.
Yep.
And they stopped it when Cal Ripken Jr. broke Lou Gehrig's streak.
Yep.
And that's why I retweeted somebody that said last night, the only reason this Tuesday night game between the 11th and 12th teams in the West is even a thing is because of LeBron and history. That's the only reason. Why else are you watching this? Look, man, it's just sports. People like, if I'm OKC, once they did the math, I'm sure the OKC coach, whoever it is, I don't know off the top of my head, like, hey, this is going to be a weird situation. right? This is going to be different. And OKC still won, but they knew that going in, right? Like, this is what happens with sports. When Peyton Manning broke the touchdown record, they stopped and did a thing. Like, come on, man. They're going to do this.
Absolutely.
You know, when Jerry broke the touchdown record, they had a little something too. Jerry Rice broke the touchdown record, which he still holds with 208 touchdowns.
Which is insane. And he, we've talked about it before, that gap between him and second is ridiculous. And the GOAT conversation was going, and he's got to be mentioned. Brady and Serena and Tiger and all that. You gotta put Rice.
Look,
sure.
There are folks that aren't Jerry Rice fans, and we've talked about it before on here. And that's fine. My I don't want to say love affair, but my love, right? Look, it's just, was he the fastest? No. Was he the most physically gifted? I could probably give you off the top of my head 10 to 12 wide receivers more physically gifted than Jerry Rice. Starting with Randy Moss, T.O., Calvin Johnson, some of these dudes today. Did he have the best hands? I think that's Chris Carter.
Yeah.
Route running. Off the top of my head, I don't know if I would have Rice at the top of that list, but and look, I give the nod to your man Michael Irvin for all of his faults, for all of his whatever. That dude went over the middle in the 80s and 90s.
He sure did.
When going over the middle was one of these, I don't know if I'm going to see my family again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do this on the turf of the Vet. I'm going to do this at RFK. I'm going to do this at the Meadowlands. I am going to go, Troy, you put the ball there, I will go get it. And so talking about the numbers, that's why baseball, I guess the numbers are okay, right? How do we know who's good? But for me, other sports, it's just different. You look at Michael Irvin's numbers, they're not fantastic.
No, 750 catches. His yards wasn't, which he wasn't a stretch the field guy anyway. But 750 when he got hurt in Philly and it ended. But yeah.
And Michael Irvin's career is basically the second half of Jerry's career, numbers wise. But I'm gonna tell you, and I'm no Cowboys fan, obviously. Michael Irvin's a Hall of Famer, right? Like, I point this out to folks. You start falling in love with numbers, and I don't have it in front of me, but like all-time passing yards, which is ridiculous. I want to say that like 19 and 20 at one point, Kerry Collins and Matthew Stafford, something like that. At 19 and 20, 21, 22, Joe Montana and Johnny Unitas. Now, if I'm the numbers people, are you trying to tell me that if you had to pick between Matthew Stafford and Kerry Collins or Joe Montana and Johnny Unitas, who would you pick?
I mean, it's just
so you can't always use numbers to tell the story.
Nope.
Unless the numbers, like Jerry, are so astronomical and so, what the hell? But then there are moments, Jerry was going over the middle as well during that stretch.
Yeah.
Back when you could you could clutch and grab and do all kinds of stuff.
And we will keep this going, but we can't get too 49ery. That bargain is enough. Got to bring a fellow Cowboys fan on. We were talking about been almost 3 years since we had him on, and we were talking about, which we have to ask him about this because he's in the green room right now. The most surreal night he had. He got to meet Jerry Jones and all them other celebs. And we ran out of time. We talked about that last time, but he is the Wave News Sports Director, 2021 NSMA Kentucky Sportscaster of the Year. Mama B's homeboy,
Mama B's favorite
Kendrick
sportscaster ever.
Haskins.
I have done so much stuff covering these cats, but she still tells the ladies at her beauty shop, you know, Terry knows Kendrick Haskins. You know, like that is the thing. So, Kendrick, so good to have you here, man.
Man, it's good to be back. I can't believe it's been that long. We can't go so long in between appearances.
Yeah, that's our fault, man. We got to get you back sooner. But now too, I ain't trying to bother you so much. You're sports director at Wave 3. You run the show. Last time you're on here, you said, I get the assignment, I'll just go. Now I assume you giving out the assignments and telling people where to go. So you got a different hat on since we had you on, and congratulations, all that, man.
Thanks, man. I'm waiting to be able to dole out some assignments. Right now, I'm a one-man department. We're still in the process of hiring somebody. We just had a guy in today for his face-to-face interview, and I took him on a tour of the city. He loved the city, so hopefully that works out. I keep telling people I'm the sports director, but I'm still waiting on somebody to direct.
There you go. I got to ask this question because you're in my hometown. You're close to it. I don't mean this to throw dirt on anybody, but what's going on with Louisville basketball? Like, how do they turn this around? Or do you think Kenny can turn it around?
I think he can turn it around. This is the culmination. And basically, it's been 5 years of this NCAA cloud hanging over their heads. I know a lot of people are like, why he didn't build up to the transfer portal and all that. Well, at that point, the NCAA decision hadn't come down yet. So that was still hanging over their heads. Plus, you got to look at a team that last year they lost, 13 of their last 18 games, and the 5 best players from that team are all gone. L. Ellis didn't start until the end of the season. Sidney Curry didn't start until the end of the season, and so it's a lot. It's just a perfect storm. They had been showing improvement last night aside. Last night was maybe the worst performance of the season for them. It's like, how many times can you let them shoot wide open threes? But I think he can turn it around. And, I'm host a coach's show right now too. So I
saw that.
Yeah, I have to put lipstick on this pig every week. and the great thing about it is they're not in bad moods when they come in. They're great. We have a blast. I can make fun of the team right there in front of them, and they're fine with it. They're like, yeah, you're right. And so it's considering the season that they're having, it has been kind of fun to do the show. But yeah, I think it's just a culmination just of what happened the last 5 years with them.
So, I mean, they knew going in, even with KP coming back and bringing Milt back and the press conference and the hype and the buzz. I guess deep down they knew they didn't have a lot of talent and the cupboard was kind of bare. I don't know if they knew it was going to be this bad. And what's next year and the year after next looking like, and how quick can they kind of get on from this?
Right. Well, Kenny said even in that press conference, he's like, temper your expectations. He said that then, and I think he'd barely met the team at that point. And he's been saying that the whole time. All the hype just came up, from the fan base because naturally what fans do when you get a new coach, especially with the credentials that Kenny came in with. They're going to have to hit the transfer portal hard. They still had the commitment from the kid that was at Male that went up to the private school up in Indianapolis. His name is escaping right now because I've been running around all day. So they should be better next year. I don't know who all returns from this roster, to be perfectly honest. We know the L's gone. We know Sidney Curry's gone. Outside of that, I would imagine that Okorafor will be back. He's been impressive in his first 3 or 4 games that he's been there because he brings an energy that you haven't seen. He's still a little raw, so he still picks up a lot. He's going to pick up a lot of fouls. That's just how it's going to be. So they can. It just depends on what kind of luck they have in the transfer portal.
Good Lord. I just now look, I was out of the loop last night. I went back home, watched Harlan County play Harlan. So I didn't see any college last night. I just saw this Louisville Pitt score. Good Lord.
And it was worse than that. Pitt was 9 of 15 from 3 in the first half. So you would think your coach shouldn't have to tell you to, let's get out on the shooters. First 9 points of the second half was 3-pointers. they opened the second half on like an 11-1 run or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
The only thing keeping me from enjoying my rivals' downfall too much is I watched Kentucky and Arkansas last night. So
that second half, good gracious.
And there's been no coaching change. There's been no NCAA cloud. But how to get it? I was talking to my lovely wife. Like, I don't know how we got to the point where I have to care about Joe Lunardi's bracketology.
Right.
Like, how do we get to this point? And is this a situation that you think Cal can rebound from? Or is he going to be like every other Kentucky coach and like, hey, you got to go. We're going to start over.
I can't see Cal going anywhere unless he wants to, especially with that class coming in next year. Yeah, they're going to bounce back next year. So I think I get a lot of 2013 vibes from this Kentucky team. Because you look at it, I mean, they should be better shooters, but they don't really shoot as well as that 13 team did. I mean, Archie Goodwin was pretty much the only shooter on that team.
Yeah,
but Well, I think an Oscar's regression is kind of hurt. It has hurt a lot, actually. And because, when they played that in the Bahamas, I kind of felt like then that, maybe they should run this offense more through Collins than Oscar because they're more built that way to get out and run long, athletic team. But that's not how they're playing because one of Cal's downfalls, I think, well, I won't even call it a downfall, but one of the things about Cal is he's so loyal to guys that have been there. I mean, you go back to the year with the Twins, when obviously Ulis and Devin Booker was a better backcourt, but he kept the Twins out there against Wisconsin. And it's you're kind of seeing the same thing with how much he plays Xavier and how dependent he still is on Oscar, when last night was an obvious night that he should have been going with Damian Collins. And so that's one of the things that stands out to me about Cal that's very similar to Rick Pitino, to be honest with you, is that they're so loyal to players that have been there that sometimes it clouds their judgment when like some games you need to go with the guys that just got there.
That's true. And like we talked about, Terry and I were talking about it, the need with Oscar and, you mentioned KP tempering expectations. Cal said it. Nobody wanted to hear it, but he said, hey, it's going to take some time with this team over the summer. And, with
we just didn't expect it to be February 8th. Still like,
because Cal says that every year, no matter what the team is.
Yeah. Everybody kind of roll their eyes and that's whatever. Just you hear it and don't
Cal
hear
being Cal.
Yeah. And with Oscar, with him winning Player of the Year and doing everything he did last year, statistically, there's nowhere to go but down. It's kind of like when Tubby won it all in his first year in '98. Nowhere to go but down. So you're not going to put up those same type of numbers. And he's still, as good as he is, he's still raw. Like his face-up game, nobody bites on that jab step. Nobody even, he went quick the other day against Florida, made a nice little dish, and I was like, oh.
Right. He flashes it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if he can add more of that, which is, it just takes time to get those reps and the confidence to do it in the game, but there's still layers of stuff that we can see, but I don't know if we will.
What you're seeing right now is the answer to so many people's questions was, why was he projected so low in the draft? Well, this is why. Because what position is he going to play in the NBA? He's undersized to play the 5. He struggles guarding out on the floor. And so, I mean, what's he going to do in the NBA? I mean, yeah, he'll hustle and he can get rebounds, but what position you put him in? You're not going to put him at 3. He can't guard the 4, and he's undersized for a 5. I think he'll more likely be a 5, but this is why he was projected so low in the draft, because what you're seeing right now.
And like TB and I were talking about, everybody's got 35 games of film. Everybody looked at all his weaknesses and, we're going to attack this. We can't wait to exploit that. And as soon as somebody found some blood with the pick and roll defense with Alabama, everybody is just.
And what do they run ad nauseum in the NBA?
Pick and roll. It's just a pick and roll league at this point.
Right. And it has been since the 90s, since John Stockton and Carmelo. And don't get me wrong, Oscar. I mean, y'all know Oscar is the salt of the earth, one of the greatest people you ever meet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure I think he'll bounce back this season. It's just a tough stretch.
Yeah.
But those are just the things he has to work on before he gets in the NBA, because I mean he'll get exploited in the NBA with his shortcomings that he has so far, especially on pick and roll defense.
And there's not a Ben Wallace, Kenneth Fareed league anymore.
Right. I mean, Oscar would have been perfect in the 90s. Oscar is a perfect 90s NBA player, a bruiser that hustles, that has long arms, and you don't have to go out on the perimeter to guard anybody. He's perfect in it because he reminds me a lot of Charles Oakley, to be honest with you. And so he's just, if he came out in the 90s, he'd be a lottery pick.
That's true. It's true, man. Jump in there, TV. Don't let me.
Well, we've talked some college hoops. Did you watch LeBron last night?
I did. I sat at work. I sat at work after I was done working just to watch LeBron. It was cool to watch. I'm not the biggest LeBron fan in the world, I'll be honest, but it's always cool to watch history, and he's put in the work. I mean, 20 years is 20 years. And him to be 20 years and still be averaging almost 30 points a game. I mean, it's unbelievable the career this guy has. He's just not real. It's like, where is the drop off? When is it gonna? Because I can't even imagine what the drop off looks like when it eventually comes. Because you don't see. I mean, there's little things here and there, especially on the defensive end, but there is no real drop off for this dude. It's amazing.
And for me, again, I'm not the biggest LeBron fan. My youngest is, but what he's doing for the Lakers now, I'm going to take all these shots. Like, he could have been doing that in Miami, in Cleveland. Like,
right.
He could have been doing 30, 35 points a game, but he was doing other things. Like, that's my takeaway is he's just different. And you don't have to say, is he better than this? I want to get to the point where we just enjoy.
Right.
Like, just enjoy what this guy has been doing for 20 years.
Right. And he still adds to his game because, I mean, big reason why he caught Kareem, let's be honest, was a 3-point shot. But he did not have that 3-point shot when he first came into the league. That's something he's developed and over time. And then the fadeaway, like the route that Jordan and Kobe kind of went, when they get further in their career, they perfect that fadeaway. And so he still brings new things to his game. Like his handle was one of his shortcomings early on in the league. True. And now look at him. And he's right up there with Steph and AI with the way he can handle the ball. I mean, it's amazing how this guy still improves at almost 40 years old. It's amazing to watch.
Yeah, the first person at that age to not just fall off the cliff and just be hanging on to be on the team, but actually still, like TB said, the leader of the team, the team still at that age.
Right. And I do feel like that he once he kind of got close to the record, he did start taking more shots than he normally does. And I wonder how much that may be hurting the Lakers, to be honest with you. But it's still, it's fun to watch, especially as the Lakers, the Lakers is like an enigma because, like, it's not crazy to say that they can win the West. It's not. But it's not crazy to say they won't make the playoffs.
But Vinny, that goes to my point of my beloved Lakers. We may not win, but we're gonna be interesting. Like, it's always gonna be. It's always gonna be Dallas.
It's just like the Cowboys. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
Nobody loses at the end of the season like Dallas.
Oh,
speaking of the Cowboys and the NFL, we're gonna talk about the Super Bowl a little bit. So, started with the Super Bowl. Who are you going with? What's your read on? We got to talk about the two black quarterbacks, Vinny.
Right.
We haven't talked about that.
Actually, I'm doing a story.
We're old enough to remember that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kendrick.
I'm actually doing a story on that. It's going to air on Friday and on Super Bowl Sunday. I reached out to a couple high school players and coaches around him. Marvin Dantzler at Central, and Kenyon Gooden, the quarterback at Collins High School, and then the Stoners over at Manual High School, and also talked to Charlie Ward about the significance of that, because it is. And the funny thing is, it's significant, but at the same time, you don't think twice about it because there's so many black quarterbacks now. Because I was thinking about it even just here at U of L, like the last 4 or 5 starting quarterbacks at U of L have all been black.
Yeah, Malik, Lamar.
You got Malik
Eddie.
for 10 years. You got Puma passed there for 5 minutes. You had Lamar and you had Teddy. And so it seems I'm trying to remember who. There was a stopgap in between Teddy and Lamar. But still, well, Reggie Bonifant too. I forgot about Reggie Bonifant was a quarterback there for a while too. So like, but you don't even think about it. And I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive that Teddy was the first starting black quarterback at U of L. But it's like it's so commonplace now. And like you go back to with Kentucky with Pookie Jones and Woodson and all that stuff. And like
Shane Boyd
Shane Boyd. Like you don't even think about it. It's just like you don't even think about it, but then it hits you like it's the first time it's been 2 in the Super Bowl, and it's just like, wow. It's a strange story to talk about because it is a story, but at the same time, you look ahead in the future, it's going to be kind of commonplace,
right? Because with Brady stepping away,
and
Aaron
Rodgers is old.
Aaron Rodgers is old. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes. Whatever happens with Lamar, like. Baltimore just run his money, right? Yeah, run his money. You know
how they're $100 million apart is beyond me. It's like, what are you doing at Baltimore? I feel like they're preparing for him to leave. They already got rid of Romans, and so I feel like they're preparing for him to go.
Yeah,
And so it used to be that anomaly. It was Randall Cunningham for a while that was carrying the torch, right?
Yeah.
Then you'd get a Rodney Peete. You get somebody like
Dante Culpepper.
Right. And then Steve McNair was doing his thing for a bit. There was always just 1 or 2, of course, Mike Vick, and we know what happened about the Mike Vick.
I still think do we still only have 2 that have actually won it though? Mahomes and Doug Williams?
Russell Wilson.
I forgot Russell Wilson. I knew there was another one in there. I couldn't remember Russell Wilson. But still, it's only 3.
three to win. Kaepernick played. And lost, and
McNair.
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 Cam Newton got to that.
Super Bowl. So we've had some play, but this, growing up like when we did, I know my dad was like black quarterback. I don't care what team he is, we rooting for him.
Right.
Because he's of that generation where they didn't let you play. Like, it sounds crazy, right? To try to explain to folks, like, Warren Moon had to go to Canada. Like all these, and here we are with.
I mean, because that's why I talked about it with Charlie Ward. Like, if Charlie Ward's skill set, if Charlie Ward came out today, he's a 1st round pick. But he didn't even get drafted, and it's crazy that his plan B was a long NBA career.
We need to talk about that dude as far as athletes. It was like, I won the Heisman. You're not going to draft me? Cool. I'm gonna play in the league for a long time. Yeah.
I mean, I think it would have like a 13-year NBA career, something like that.
Yeah.
And this dude, and like he's a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, and at that point he was my favorite player to watch. Period. Because Charlie, and if you really look at it, Patrick Mahomes' game is very similar to Charlie's because it's a thing of he can run, but he doesn't run. You're not gonna call read options for him. You know what I mean? But he can get away. And Charlie, he even said, he's like, when I ran, I was just running to get first downs or to get out of trouble. I really wasn't running as, a play call.
Yeah.
And so you look at the evolution since then. And like, even then, as good as Charlie was, he was still kind of an enigma because it was like him and Tommy Frazier.
Right.
About it.
Right. And that Dantzler kid out at Clemson before
Woodrow.
Was Clemson.
Woodrow Dantzler.
Yeah. There we go, taking it back.
Absolutely.
But before we move off football, I got to ask another question. Y'all are Cowboys fans. I'm a Niners fan. Please explain to me that last play. What is it that y'all was trying to do with Zeke snapping the ball?
You see that offensive coordinator is no longer in Dallas anymore. That's 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row.
I tweeted out after the game which play to end the season was more of a hot mess. The one at home in Dallas with the run trying to get it snapped, and the one in San Francisco. And that, Both of them just a disaster, man.
The thing that was most frustrating about the San Francisco game is Dallas was dominating that game. If Dak doesn't Dak, Dallas wins the game. But Dak totally Dak.
Yeah.
I had a feeling he was going to Dak coming in because he played so great against Tampa.
Yeah.
Like this dude ain't playing 2 good games in a row.
But
if he had an average game against Tampa, I'd have been okay. But he played too well. So I was like, he's not gonna do that 2 in a row.
I went to the Green Bay game, bucket list, Lambeau Field.
Oh wow! And he totally Daked in the second half.
195-0 went up 2 scores in the fourth quarter, and Green Bay scores 17 unanswered and beats the Cowboys. So I was there to see that history. They never lost ever up 2 scores in the fourth quarter, and there I sit and watch them do it. So.
Right. I was stunned by that stat. I'm like, as much as Dallas does dumb stuff, that's the first time that's happened.
Yeah,
I was stunned.
I saw it live in person, man. So, oh well.
As a long-suffering Cowboys fan, I'm one of the ones who's realistic. Like, I never think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm like, why do people think they're going to win it every year? I'm like, no. I haven't thought they were going to win the Super Bowl since Emmett was there. But, like, what do you see every year that makes you think? Because, like, Stephen A. Smith is dead on. He's like, it's an accident waiting to happen. Every time he does that, I crack up because it's true.
I hate to give him credit for it because he does.
But it's true.
Right. Yeah.
It makes doing this podcast fun for me. But Kendrick, let me tell you what Vinny does, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the Niners and Cowboys play, and the Wednesday after the game, we have like 8 guests. So I have to be nice.
Smart man.
Because I knew it was going to happen. Tuesday, I look at my phone. We got Joe Smith. And then come on. Man. And I'm ready to show up and show out. We got all these guys.
Gotta calm all that heat down. He's trying to throw.
Right.
Think he's slick.
Yeah.
I got my Dion back there.
Yeah, I see it. Right. Yeah, not the Niners Dion, the Cowboys Dion.
It's Cowboys Dion. That's what he's known
Don't
for.
get it twisted.
All right.
But man, we gotta get you back on. Sorry, it's been almost 3 years since we.
I didn't realize it. I've moved and everything.
like September of 2020.
I got a job and everything.
Because we were doing that podcast with Kevin Hale, and we were warming up Vinny, and Kevin's like, who you got coming on the show? And I'm telling him, and Kendrick's like, well, when you gonna have me on? And I said, we've had you on. He said, no. I'm like, really? I text Vinny, he's like, no. I was like, well, we got to make this happen.
Hey, it's gotta happen more often, man. Because I said I'm doing this, and I've got my podcast that I do with Charlie Ward and Lloyd Spence. I believe in the ACC. We do that every Thursday at 9:00. We gotta do a home and home.
I gotta get you because I do believe in Kentucky, so I gotta get you on there, man.
Oh yeah, man. And I'm telling you,
crossover.
Charlie Ward is like one of the most humble people you'll ever meet, but he's so fun to pick on. because Charlie does little stuff. He doesn't really brag, but he'll throw a flex in there on you in a heartbeat. And so we have a button when he does it. Lloyd hits the button and says, "That's a Charlie Ward humble flex." And he gets all irritated when we do it. He's good people, man. It's like one of the thrills of my career, to be honest with you. Because like I said, I grew up a huge Charlie Ward fan. So to be able to do that podcast with him, and actually he's somebody I can just reach out to for just like life advice, because he's he's super intelligent. He's really religious and stuff. So I can go to him with anything. And I mean, that's just awesome. And be like, yeah, I can go to Charlie Ward and ask him that.
Awesome. That fast break offense at Florida State was legit.
Oh man.
When he would hit them play fakes,
buddy. Man, and then you had Warwick Dunn back there.
Yeah.
who could break off a 50-yarder in a heartbeit.
Yeah. They had Vanover and a whole bunch of other dudes.
Vanover,
Kez McCorvey, all those dudes.
E.G. Green on them, Steve.
Oh, see, there we go.
Man, they was.
I like having somebody our age come on here and reminisce about way back when.
Right.
Vinny invites too many young guests, and they be talking about, when I was a kid in 2008, get out of my face.
Yeah. When I was a kid growing up watching DeMarcus Cousins. Like, what?
You know, I'm watching football when they had the big neck rolls and the
Right,
cutoff
shoulder
shorts.
pads of this big.
Yeah, give me that.
Fishnet jerseys.
Yeah, we on that same area, man. We the same age.
Yeah, I was talking to my job candidate today, and somehow he was asking me about who are my favorite teams outside of the area, and I was like, you know, I grew up in the 90s with UNLV, and man, those teams back then, Larry Johnson and Greg Anthony and Anderson Hunt and Stacey Augmon and all those teams, man, I was the biggest UNLV fan back then. And even before then, when Armin Gilliam was there, and they had this guy named Travis Bassnight, dude would dunk everything. Man, those teams, man, were fantastic.
And real quick, before we let you go, don't want to keep you too long, but way back then, as we sit around like we at the barbershop, coaches and teams had personality.
Right.
Like, I love some of the coaches, but it's not the same as Tart
It's not the same like Tart
or John
chewing
Thompson
on a towel during the game.
Or, you know, even we're old enough to remember when Coach K couldn't win the big one, right? Going back
right,
like,
exactly.
Right, you know, before Jordan was a guaranteed kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So just the different era of the coach and the programs really being different, you know.
Right.
I can't remember who was tweeting about John Thompson and Georgetown today. And look, I thought Georgetown was HBCU.
Oh yeah.
I remember saying that to my dad, and he said, "Negro, what are you talking about?" Like, he's like, "That's one of the whitest colleges."
What are him and Miami both?
Right. You find out Coral Gables ain't a lot of black people in Coral Gables.
No, all the black people on campus are the ones you seen on TV.
Exactly. Those are all we got.
That wasn't. You'll never have a guy that's just sitting over there chewing on his towel during the game, or John Chaney threatening to kill Cal, and like you're never gonna see that stuff. And then with Dale Brown, you know how crazy he was, and Bobby Knight and all that stuff. Even Denny went out there with his rolled up program and his red coat. You don't see that anymore, man.
You had personality, and you know,
there's some characters.
Nick Saban, for all his winning. What's your memory of Nick Saban besides winning?
Right.
You know, it's not Woody Hayes choking something. You know, something like that.
Up in some wild times.
But Kendrick, always good to have you on.
Man,
I know this is the second time. We're gonna do it again.
Yeah, man.
Man.
Hey, I'm gonna hit you. I'm gonna hit you up. I'm gonna be in Louisville next weekend.
Okay.
We're gonna be in Louisville the whole weekend. So
my
baby's
be around.
birthday.
I don't know what
We'll see.
But
my mom still thinks it's cool that I know Kendrick has. I'm telling you,
it's hilarious.
Celebrity, man.
That picture we took at one of the games, she's got on her phone and she takes it and she shows it. Everything I've done, the coolest thing is Kendrick. So we appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you guys, man. We gotta do this again soon.
Appreciate it, Kendrick.
All right, man. Thank you.
Hey. We flopped it around. Kendrick Haskins, sports director, Wave 3 News. Appreciate him hopping on. We ended up switching it. I missed Coach Jones, man. He sent me a text talking about sending it to his phone. I missed that. So Kendrick came on. Coach Jones been in the green room listening to us chop it up with Kendrick and patiently staying on here. So we got the head coach of the Harlan County Black Bears coming off an 81-73 win over the Harlan Dragons last night at home. 21-5, 8-0 in the region, 5-0 in the district. Kyle Jones, coach, man, appreciate you hopping on here. How you doing, sir?
Good. Thank you guys for having me on. My voice sounds a little cracked. I yelled a lot last night at the ball game.
That's okay. We get it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Appreciate you waiting too, because I
enjoyed listening to you guys because I can remember some of those games too. I'm from the '90s there. I remember all those teams he was talking about, UNLV and all them. I enjoyed watching those guys too. So I enjoyed listening to you guys.
Oh, appreciate it. I was like, man, I hope you didn't mean to keep you waiting because it was my fault that I didn't get you in at 7. But I remember that SEC story, the documentary they do, kind of like the SEC Network's 30 for 30, the one that Arkansas did. And they were talking to Nolan Richardson, and they were playing UNLV. with Larry Johnson and all those teams. And Larry went up and dunked on the whole Arkansas team. And running back down the court, Larry looked at Nolan and told him, he said, "You better get you some grown men." So Nolan then goes and gets Corliss Williamson and that whole crew. They ended up winning the championship in '94. But Larry Johnson and Tark, Larry saying, "You better get some grown men." And so Nolan went and got some grown men.
Right. I heard you say you came to our game last night. Did you enjoy it?
I sure did, man. I got there. I live outside Knoxville, so I ran up, drove to Lynch. My mom's still there in Lynch. Went and got a little dinner with Mom. Took my boys up there and got down there about 7:15. It was a packed house.
Yes, sir.
Got in there and watched y'all shoot the lights out. I mean, the first quarter on fire. We're up 26-8, man, and just Harlan made a couple runs, but y'all were able to kind of keep them at arm's length all night, right?
Yeah. They got a really good team. We got a lot of respect for their program. Coach Cal's done a great job. I know he's from up your way. He's a Cumberland guy, so got a lot of respect for him. And I don't think people realize the talent that's in our county right now, and that's kind of unheard of. Small Eastern Kentucky county. It's not been like that in probably a couple of decades or more. So it's just real. It's a real good time, not just for our team, but just the Harlan County community and all.
Yeah. So tell us about your journey as you from the other end of the county. Your journey as a player, your journey as a coach. How'd you get into it, and just tell us about you right quick.
Well, I actually played for Harlan Independent, so. Played for my father there, played on some really good teams, played in the Sweet 16, won a couple of Class A states, played with a lot of really good players. And, I always tell people, I don't, it's hard for me playing at Harlan and all those memories. I don't wish Harlan any bad luck unless they play us. So that's just the way I look at it. I like to see those guys do good as well. But started out, I kind of fell into this job. My brother was actually the coach before, and he stepped down. And then, a lot of guys that I've done our middle school for several years here, and just know a lot of the kids that play, coached all of them, and been around basketball all my life with my dad. And he's been a big part of my life with sports. And, he's in the Kentucky Hall of Fame for coaching, and just learn a lot from him. And, some guys fell through with the job, and, I was blessed enough to get the opportunity, and we've just ran with it. I got a lot of good players. Good players make coaches look pretty good. So you got to have players to win games. So I never get credit to coaches. Only get the credit when you lose.
That's right. What year did you graduate? Because we had Mike on last year.
Yes, sir.
And, I graduated in '96 and went to Cumberland. So back then we couldn't stand y'all. We couldn't, And look, Charles coming from Cumberland to Harlan. Sir. That just added fuel to the fire. Look, he did what he had to do, but we went to grade school with Charles, and then he was down there with y'all and on that good squad. So that just made the rivalry that much more intense.
Oh, yeah.
So when did you graduate? And
graduated in 98, 99.
Okay.
Played. We actually lost in the regional finals to Clay County. You know a little bit about Clay County being from Cumberland.
Mm-hmm.
They used to dominate the 13th region, and then and I actually played on the 96 team. We went to the state that year and lost to Henderson County. But our team beat Paintsville that year in the Class A, and they won the Sweet 16. So we had a pretty good team that year. So
with J.R. Van Hoos.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's right. So, man, your dad, of course, we're known forever, and the program he ran there at Harlan, you and Mike, and so yeah. And you said you did middle school, and then
I did. I actually coached our middle school for several years, and never really wanted to take the jump to help in the high school just because of my kids. It takes a lot of time, but people don't realize how much time coaching takes, if you're dedicated to it. And but the opportunity fell in place for me this year, and again, I'm blessed and just was blessed with an awesome group of kids. That jumped right in, and they kind of took me in, and we've gone from there. We played a really tough schedule. We was up in Louisville. We played in the King of the Bluegrass, which was a big honor. Got to play some teams from Louisville, and that's just made us better. I feel like, playing in regional play. This I got some pretty good players though. I got a kid that you was there last night, Trent Noah. He's pretty special. He's 6'7" combo guard, and is a junior. And I've he's got several D1 offers right now, and I'm hoping maybe some even Kentucky or Louisville might sniff around and give him a look as well.
Yeah, like Virginia Tech and Coastal Carolina, and sometimes he's just so nice. He'll tweet out, thanks to whoever comes in to see him or visit him, talk with him, and
he's so poised. I've never been around a kid that. Don't matter what's happening in the game, you can't bother him. He's played so much. How kids are today. You guys talk about sports. Basketball's year round now. They play so much AAU and stuff. Like it's he don't get rattled. And then, we got the Huff kid too. It's a sophomore. He's a pretty good player as well.
Mm-hmm. And I guess everybody was. I don't know if they breathed a sigh of relief. I know I did when it looked like Trent was going to go to North Laurel, turned on ESPN, and there he was with Reed Shepherd. I was like, what happened? And he was in North Laurel, but then decides to come back and come back to Harlan County. So
that definitely helped. But no, North, y'all know how good Reed Shepherd is. Our region's just so tough. I feel like, a lot of people talk about Louisville and Lexington regions, but the 13th region is as good as it has been probably since the days when Charles Thomas played. So, it's going to be a tough battle. I mean, I think there's 4 or 5 teams, including Harlan, that could cut the nets down.
Yeah, it's going to be something else. We had Coach Cal on last week, and I asked him, I'm going to ask you the same thing, where y'all played each other in a 5-day span. That was the quickest turnaround. You played last Thursday, then you played last night. I asked him, did he like that? Do you like playing teams that quickly, or do you rather have a little more space, 2, 3, 4 weeks in between when you have to play them that second time?
For sure. I think next year we're going to try to schedule that a little different. Of course, the Class A, they went to the Class A state, and that kind of messed their schedule up a little bit. But it's hard just to bounce back emotionally, not just, mentally too, not just physically. But emotionally, you got to get your kids ready. They got to be ready. I mean, that's a huge rivalry. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest 2 crowds I've seen at a Harlan-Hardy County game, and they was in a 5-day span. So it was a great atmosphere. All these games are played in big venues now. Especially the game at Harlan, you got a 1,500 gym capacity or 15-person capacity, and they, I'd say there was 3,000 people in that gym. So it was pretty crazy. But no, we definitely like to have some separation next year when we play those guys.
That's what I'd say. That I didn't make it to the game at Harlan, but I've been in there several times, and I figured the fire marshal had to be looking the other way just to,
Yeah, I actually said the same thing, sir. I said if the fire marshal come in here tonight, he'd definitely shut this game down.
That's right, because that's the last night at Harlan County, which is a lot bigger. That's the most packed I've ever seen it, and
yes, sir.
I'd hoped to get there a little sooner, like I said, but it was about 7:15 when I left Mom's to come down there. And when I saw the parking lot, I just parked on the side of the road. I ain't even try to pull into the school. I just parked on the side of the road and just walked the rest of the way because it was. I said they're lined up. Oh, it's this kind of crowd tonight. Okay.
Yeah. Next time you get to make it to a game for sure, we'll sneak in VIP up there at the top. since you're old Harlan County guy.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Because that's part of my school. It's Cumberland, Everest, Kaywood. And that's what Harlan County is. So yeah, man, and just great game last night, man. Like you said, for that quick turnaround, just played Harlan over there, and you know what a rivalry it is. And then, you going back to your old stomping grounds where you played and all that, and then to have that quick turnaround. And I haven't seen every game. That first quarter, is that the best you've seen the team all year, or has there been periods where they've kind of matched that? Or
Yeah, we've had a few games where we played that well. In the first quarter, I'd like to see us carry it throughout the whole game, but we knew Harlan was going to make runs. They're just, they're too good not to. That's probably the best we've shot in a quarter. I'm not, and we needed that to be able to win that game. So luckily we made a bunch of shots. I think we was like 7 of 10 from 3 in the first quarter. So
yeah,
that was pretty impressive.
That's it. Sure was. And so up next is Middlesbrough at home, and then it's only 4 games left, and then it's time, Coach. You kind of getting time to get everybody where you need to be. That whole is Coach speak, peaking at the right time. It's time for that now, isn't it?
We're hoping we're doing that. Middlesbrough's another district game, and that's who we play. Who will also play in the first round of the district, and then Harlan will play Bell County. So we gotta come out and make a statement, I feel like, against Millsboro, and before we play them in the first round.
Yeah. It's crazy how fast that it's gone by.
Fast.
Everybody will be at Corbin here before you know it. I mean, it's that time of year again. But
how do you guys are sports fans, how do you like these? Because I heard y'all talking about the old days. So how do y'all like these big venues for regional tournaments? Do you like them back at the old high school gyms where it's just crazy packed crowds? I'll ask both of you guys that question.
I'm from Louisville, Coach. So a lot of our venues are a little bit bigger, just for that. So the one thing I love about Vinny, what he does, he's always showing love where he's from. I tell people we have more folks from Harlan County than that Justified TV show, because he's bringing on everybody. And I appreciate it, because number one, again, I'm from Louisville. I love Kentucky. But growing up in Louisville, it's easy to get your blinders on, especially high school sports, because there's so many schools in Louisville. It's almost, you have to reach the state tournament before you even have to think about other places. So doing this with Vinny for the past 10 years, Vinny, it's going on, and just learning about that area of the state has been fantastic for me, and the great players that come out of there, the great people that come out of there. So Vinny's doing good work for his neck of the woods.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And we got to play. Where'd you go to high school in Louisville?
I went to Seneca High School, which for the past 40 years hasn't been very good. But Vinny, do you know who went there? Top 75 NBA player. Wes Unseld went to Seneca way back when, and that was the last time we won the state tournament. So it's been a while. Well, Tony Kimbrough played at Louisville and a couple other Louisville, but basketball is not exactly what we did back then.
As far as the venue, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little torn. To have it at Cumberland, at Harlan, at Everett, at Kaywood, just from that small intensity standpoint, is good. But to have these bigger venues, I'm biased, but the Harlan County Gym is one of the nicest in the state. And even if I wasn't biased, I still think I'd say that. So from a exposure standpoint, WYMT is coming and streaming the games and putting them on TV. And from an exposure standpoint, from our neck of the woods, I think the bigger venues are better. This Corbin Arena, Snoop Dogg and Travis Tritt and all these big name artists are coming to Corbin. Who would have thought that in 1995, 1996? No way these artists are coming to Corbin. So to have that big arena for the regional tournament, I'm glad to see, like TV's already always said, Louisville's had bigger stuff because it's a bigger city. to be able to have bigger venues for where we're from, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, he's you talking about being from Louisville. We got to play Louisville Male and Louisville Trinity this year, and Fairdale in the King of the Bluegrass, and it, you know, just a tradition of those schools. Like I was trying to tell our players, you know, our younger guys, you know, I can remember Fairdale going to the state tournament with my father when in the '90s they won it 2 years in a row. I think they had Jerron Brown
And Turner.
yes,
Turner?
man, those
Is that
guys.
right? Yeah. Those and Mail had Jason Osborne at that point. Yeah, that Mail's been tough, Vinny.
Yeah.
That's where Daryl Griffith went.
Yeah,
To let you know, Larry O'Bannon that played for Louisville. So
yeah.
Mail was in our district. So you know,
Yeah.
good luck.
I'm not so mad about my district then. You got Mail. Yeah, I mean,
and
it's just,
Trinity
you know,
for football. Our football district was Mail, Trinity, St. X. I think it's changed now, but it was brutal, man. We would have like a 3-game stretch where it's like 70. So yeah, they've shuffled it since then because it's been almost 30 years ago, Vinny.
Yeah.
Well, it has been 30 years ago, but yeah.
that's crazy.
I think Coach Harden just passed away that coached those last 2 back-to-back championships for Fairdale. I think Stan Harden was the coach.
Sounds familiar.
He would call the games at the state tournament every year. If I didn't go, I always listen at work. You know, Cameron Mills would be on the broadcast, and it'd be Paul Rogers, the voice of the Cardinals, and Coach Harden would always be on there as a color analyst with whoever the voice of EKU or Western, whoever. And they always talked about that Fairdale team was the last one to go back to back. But I think he just passed away. But he was just I never met him. He'd just be just a gruff sounding old school dude, and whatever play would happen. Well, they need to get the ball inside a little bit more.
Yeah.
I just loved hearing his little just blunt to the point announcement. They need to stay out of foul trouble and guard the 3-point line a little better. I loved hearing Coach Harden every year at the state tournament. I always listen to it. I'd stream it on my phone at work, man. I just loved hearing him.
Yeah, it was like going up there to the King of the Bluegrass and just walking in Fairdale's gym. And seeing some of those players that they had and stuff, I was just in awe. Just reading some of their past history, and we actually got invited back to that next year. It helps when you got good players, so you get invited to big tournaments, and that's one of the biggest pre-Christmas tournaments in the state, probably the biggest. And we're excited to go back to Louisville next year. You guys will have to come up and check us out next year when we go to Louisville.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Congratulations on getting another invite, and definitely got to get to more games next year. You mentioned some of the good players. You mentioned some earlier. You mentioned Maddox Huff and Trent Noah. Trent had 30 and 12 last night, and did I see where he tweeted out that Trent, 1,000 career rebounds last night as well, joined 1,000 rebound clubs.
Yeah, he's over 2,500 points right now and 1,000 rebounds, and he's a junior. So I mean, and he shoots about 42% from 3 at 6'7". So, I just feel like he's a big time prospect that, even though in the days of social media and AAU basketball, you're still stuck in Eastern Kentucky, and a lot of people, that kind of get that bad, like, nah, those guys really can't. They're good, but they can't play with these guys. He can play.
Yeah, he sure did. And you said he's just poised. Shooting the 3 ball a couple times when Harlan did make a run. They cut it to 9 or 7, and got a quick and 1 to kind of stop that run and keep that cushion to get it to keep it from getting to the point where the pressure was on you all. If Harlan cuts it to 4, or then because they were down so much, but he stopped a couple of their runs with some key buckets, and then y'all were able to kind of keep it a 3-4 possession game the rest of the way.
I'll tell you a crazy stat of another kid we got. Y'all, this will blow your mind. He's made 98 3-pointers this year, and he's shooting 49%.
Man, that's
I couldn't do that unguarded, Vinny. I know I couldn't do that in an empty gym.
Yeah, it's Daniel Carmichael. He's the smaller guard that we had, Mr. Hardy, last night, number 4.
Okay.
He's shooting 49% and made 96 threes so far this year. It's unheard of. So he's just a good complimentary piece to those guys. But I tell you what's easy as a coach is like you can draw up all these great plays, but when you got a kid or two that can take a game over, it's nice to go over to them and say, "Hey, I need you to get a bucket." So that makes you look good as a coach when you got that.
And that's the one thing, and I don't mean to go on a tangent here, Vinny, that I love about basketball is essentially, even at the highest level, it's can you go get a bucket?
Yeah.
Like scheme, whatever. If your coach says to you, like you say, Coach, I need you to go get one. Because there's a lot of good players all over the place. The great ones we remember are the ones I can go get you this bucket.
Right.
It sounds easy, right?
It's not.
Just go put the ball in the hoop. Sounds easy, but depending on, circumstance, like, can you go get a bucket? And it's good that you've got some players like that. I know it makes you feel better.
Oh, yes, sir.
It's like Vinny and I talk about the triangle offense that Phil Jackson ran. Most successful offense ever, but it really helps if you got Michael Jordan on one corner, Scottie Pippen on the other, or Shaq and Kobe on your triangle offense. Sometimes that helps a little bit.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So are you a Louisville fan, basketball, or Kentucky?
I grew up a Louisville.
I see Mr. Hardy with a Kentucky shirt on, so I know where.
Oh, Coach. Yeah. Let me show you my wall.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. That's Kentucky. That's soccer, volleyball. Oh no, I grew up a Louisville fan. My parents went to Louisville, brothers and everything went to Louisville. I was going to go to Louisville, and Vinny, I'm not going to testify for a minute, but I was on Interstate 64 on coming back from Louisville, heading my way to Lexington, and like Saul on the road to Damascus, the sky opened up. They said, Terry Brown, you got to turn your life around. You don't need to be going to Louisville. And so I went to UK, and so I'm a UK fan.
There you go.
Louisville fans don't like that, but that's how I tell the story.
It sounded good to me. Oh, man. Well, Coach, man, we appreciate you hopping on.
Yes, sir.
Wish you the best the rest of the way, what's left of the regular season, and then on in the postseason play. I'm about to get up and catch some more games. Get there early, and I'll try to holler at you next time.
I mean that. Next time you come, I'm gonna let you in up top and get you in free, man. We won't make you fight that crowd down on the bottom parking lot.
I appreciate it.
Vinny Hardy gonna be VIP. I love it. I love it.
Man, I appreciate it.
Hey, you always showing love for Harlan County. So
exactly.
I tip my hat to you, man.
Until you mentioned Daniel Carmichael, we tell Cameron hello. I know he's on your staff. We had Cameron on here a couple of times when he was back at Eastern.
Yes.
I think just when he graduated Harlan County and before he was about to head to Eastern. And he was a good ball player too back at his
Yes, sir.
And no doubt brings a lot to the staff. I mean, he just played and can relate and a little bit, not that we're ancient, but he's a little bit younger and can
right.
that dynamic to your staff as well. Look, I'm not telling you nothing you don't know. You had him on the staff for a reason, so
right.
like I'm breaking it every Saturday news. But that's a good young fella right there. So tell him we said hey when you.
I will. I sure will. Thank you guys for having me on. It's nice to meet both of you.
Hey, appreciate you. Sorry about missing your text and not getting you on at 7, and appreciate you being patient and waiting to get in, even though we kind of switched you around. As far as coming, man.
No problem. Thank you very much, guys.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Coach.
Take care.
You too.
Thank you, Coach. Yes, sir. Good luck the rest of the week.
Kyle Jones, coach of the Harlan County Black Bears. Kendrick Haskins, Mark Story, 3 great guests. Another fun show. Real quick, man, what you got for this Sunday?
The Cowboys did lose to the Niners. So there you go. All those guests you have. Thank you, Slick. Another great show. Like Coach said, having great players makes his job easier. Having great guests that know what they talk about makes what we do a whole lot easier. So
that's great.
Before we get out of here, who you got in the Super Bowl? Who you rocking with?
I can't pull for the Eagles. I just can't. So I'm hoping I'm going head and heart. Chiefs. I'm gonna say 27-21, Kansas City, something like that. I think they'll. Mm-hmm. That'll be.
I'm going with the Eagles.
Oh, Lord.
Simply because now Mahomes. Now, would it surprise me if Mahomes pulls out a performance?
Yeah.
Because what does my hat say? And you remember a couple Super Bowls ago,
Mm.
I know what that dude can do on the big stage.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm saying that because the Eagles play the way my Niners play, which is different than just about every other team in the league. We're going to punch you in the face for 60 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Can
you take being punched in the face for 60 minutes? And so I'll tip my hat. Although letting Eagles fans get 2, that may be the sign of the apocalypse. That may be the rapture may be upon us if the Eagles get 2. That may be something.
The thought of that, man. And they're 60 minutes away from it happening. Oh,
but if Mahomes pulls it out, I don't know how you rank them, but woo.
He's only 27.
What 3 All-Pros, probably 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowl championships,
and
like 5 straight conference championship home games.
Yeah.
I mean, woo.
Andy Reid can't go out to the team he used to coach. Andy Reid.
That's what. There you go.
Oh man, another fun show. Hope the Cats get it back together at Georgia, which they better not go in there half stepping because they could slip up. So I mean, Georgia ain't great, but when you struggling, you can make teams be better than they are. If you
That's right.
Especially on the road, especially on the road.
Yeah, they got to bring it. So I'm hoping that Arkansas is the watershed moment, but we'll see. I thought South Carolina was too. We felt good, but we'll see. We'll give it a go.
Yeah. And we'll be back. Well, we'll have to see what the scheduling is. We got a bunch of Wednesday games coming up, TB. So we have to see how we can
figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Navigate that. So
got to give the people a little something.
Yeah. Y'all stay tuned for these next 3 weeks. Got games. So for my man Terry TV Brown and his Niners bogging, we'll see y'all next week. Be safe when y'all come to Louisville.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I will attempt to play our music on the way out and not mess it up like I did on the way in. For TB, this is Vinny. Appreciate y'all listening. See y'all next week on Cats Talk Wednesday.
It's
wrong look, I messed up again. Here we go.